Welcome everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this month's webinar from the Get It Right initiative. So my name is Helen Soulou. I'm the head of program assurance at the restoration and renewal of the Palace of Westminster. I work for the Delivery Authority, but I'm also a board member with the Get It Right initiative. So we have this topic today about the quality in construction. How do you build quality in construction design? And we will present to you a tool that has been developed through the years by different professionals, started with Heathrow Airport and has been evolved with some international recognition and use. Presenters will be presenting themselves as they come along, but we have David Myers and Anita McReynolds-Lidbury joining us. A little bit of housekeeping. If I can please ask you to turn your cameras off and make sure your microphones are off on mute as well, please. Whilst we're having the presentation, you can all kind of turn them back on. Hopefully microphones not all at the same time. And you can ask questions through the chat at any time, but we will take questions from you at the end of the session. You can contact the host privately if you want in the chat box if you have any technical problems. And for your information, the session is being recorded and will be shared online. And we will share the slides as a PDF. And also you will have access to the tool. I think you probably have had access to it already, but if not, I'm sure it will be shared later. The objective of today, as I've said briefly, is to make you aware about this freely available tool that has been developed to improve quality during the early stages of design. So it's more about concept and developed design stages. Through the agenda, we will take you through the background and the initial development and use. I'll explain how it was initiated and originally used. David is going to talk to you about how it attracted global interest from Australia to the States and of course the UK and other countries, and how it was refined and some of the key benefits of using the tool. Then Anita is going to tell you about how it has been used in North America in a specific project that she's working on and how she's currently using it, and also some of the approvals that it has gone through there. So a little bit first about the rationale for improving quality, although I think probably by you attending this, you probably don't need me to be reminding you why we need to be improving quality during the design stages of a project. But as you probably know, being here and being members of the Get It Right initiative and attending this webinar, the Get It Right initiative was launched in 2016, and it was launched with a research study which was called Strategy for Change. And the biggest thing that this research did was to give us an idea of the wasted spend on error. And of course, we all knew that there were hidden costs of error, but it tried to estimate the hidden cost of error. It gave us an idea of the overall cost from the project cost to be 21%, which actually means that we are wasting about 22 billion a year in the UK in all forms of error, the ones that we record, the ones that we don't record, the ones that we know about, wasted working around making errors, correcting errors. And the root causes of errors are have been also investigated by the Get It Right initiative a bit later. And 10 of the top root causes have been identified here. And as you can see, almost half of them are linked with design. So you can see that there is slight changes in design, poorly communicated design information, purely coordinated or incorrect design information, not thinking about constructability, buildability when we are doing design, also having poor interfaces and interface management during the design. So one of the reasons why this tool is important is because it is trying to ensure that some of the problems that are being built into the construction project later on, because we don't do design correctly or at the best that we can, are being prevented. So it's looking at how can we do design a little bit better. And so I'll explain how it was first developed and used at Heathrow. And it all started with a question. I was a quality manager working in the program development space. So that meant projects that were very early and they were at the concept and develop design stage. And my client program director asked me a question. So he said to me, you know, you're my quality manager. Can you tell me how I can monitor the quality of the design? And also, how can I challenge my project team and my designers at this stage so that I know they are progressing well, and I know that the design that we will produce is going to make sure that we have a good quality project at the end. So as a good quality professional, I organized some multidiscipline workshops and invited people from the project team to think about this problem and give a solution. So we had people from quality, clearly. I was involved directly. We had the project managers, and we have members from our design teams. At that point, it was Atkins, Arup, and Jacobs that were the program designers at Heathrow, and also our cost and controls consultant, which was Turner and Townsend at that point. And the key thing that we thought about was, if we know what are the key steps and activities in the concept and design development stages, and we record these, then we know what we should be doing in order to have, you know, robust design. And then we can check ourselves against that and understand whether we're doing what we said we were going to do. And if not, what action should we take? And we created an effectively a smart checklist that looks at the different elements and activities in the concept and develop design stages that you can check against, and a method of recording your comments and your actions. And the other thing that we were able to provide was an escalation route. So because clearly we had that request from the program director, by developing this tool and by using it, we had also a way of going into program and project team meetings and escalating what support we needed to get things right. So originally the tool was designed to be a self-assessment tool. And it was used in projects at Heathrow as a self-assessment tool. So it was used as part of the project review, in project review meetings. And as I said earlier, it was linked with the project reporting and ultimately with the program reporting, looking at, you know, how, looking at the program level risks or mitigations or opportunities. With my current knowledge and working now in assurance, I'm thinking that this tool could also be used as part of a toolkit for assurance reviews in these stages, and it can provide an independent view of the health of the design process. So I'm going to hand over to David Myers now to take us through how the tool was further designed and how it attracted international knowledge. Over to you, David.
Thank you. Just get my screen sharing. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. So thank you very much, Helen, for taking us through the initial development of the tool.
It's not showing at the moment.
We cannot see it, David.
Cannot see it, okay. I push the vital button, that might help.
Yes, that's coming.
Thank you. Right, sorry about that. Yes, so thank you very much, Helen, for taking us through the initial development. My name is David Myers. My background has been primarily in automotive, but for the last 12 years, I've been involved in construction, both in program management and also in quality. and I was working at Heathrow with Helen when this tool was developed. I think the key takeout from the tool so far, and I'll amplify it later, is that the key is the level of expertise that's been built into the tool initially by Heathrow and its consultants and contractors. There's an immense amount of knowledge of how to deliver a high quality project successfully built into the tool. I'm going to explain how the tool was developed from there, from its Heathrow foundations, and then very briefly how to use the tool effectively. So when I worked with the CQI, and one of the projects I did back in 2019 was to help develop this thing called the Quality in the Project Lifecycle, which you may have seen. I don't expect you to go through to understanding exactly what's in here. It's just to give you a flavor of what the tool contains. So at the top of the tool, we have all the client actions that are needed to ensure a high quality delivery of a project. At the bottom, we have the consultants and contractors and subcontractors. And the important thing here is the amount of critical things the client has to do to deliver a project successfully. And that's really the key thing to take out. So in 2020, this was published, and then it was publicized via LinkedIn. And the LinkedIn post generated a lot of interest around the world from passionate experts on this subject. We started talking, and we all agreed that, as with the GIRI conclusions, over 50% of the defects that emerge during the construction phase can be tracked back to the design. So we all agreed design was critical, but we also recognize that in construction today, there are lots of quality metrics around delivering a project on site, and very few quality metrics around the design phase, as Helen was describing at Heathrow. Hence, this little group of experts decided to focus on the design phase and what we could do to drive quality in that area. So we decided that the Heathrow tool was a good place to start the development of that tool. The experts, as Helen said, from around the world. We had Australia, Europe, and North America all working together. We also gained input from a wide variety of people, including the chair of ICE, the Institute of Civil Engineering in the UK, and once again concluded that client involvement is critical in getting the overall delivery of a project to be successful. Sorry about this, won't be a second. Right. So the tool, we basically took the tool as it was developed by Heathrow and then added in all this new knowledge and came up with a product, which is basically an Excel file. That product was then taken to the quality professional groups around in our countries, in the UK, the US, and in Australia. And we got approval from those bodies that this was a useful thing to have, and they are now published on their websites as free quality guidance. At the same time, in 2020, I started talking with GIRI and ADM, the Association of Design Management, and got some more good feedback that we've then built into a revised version of the tool that we put out as part of the annual review process in 2022. So what does the tool look like? Well, I'm not going to go through in detail what it looks like, but just to give you a flavor of what's there and how it's used. It's an Excel file, as I said. The first tab talks about the tool and its background and how basically to use it. So in other words, it's got much of the information we're going to talk about in this webinar. The second tab is a glossary, because obviously around the world, people use different language to describe the same thing. So we tried to get a common language set that everyone could understand. And then the third tab is a summary shown on the right of this slide. The third tab is a summary of the status of the project. So just thinking about how you go about using the tool. So it basically drives a number of reviews. These reviews take about 2 hours at a time. The people who should be at that review are client quality manager and project managers taking part in the project. It is primarily a subjective assessment. I would really have liked it to be an objective assessment when we first started, but in the end, that's extremely difficult to try and do at this stage of the project. So we focused on these key project steps and having an open discussion about how they were being delivered. So it relies on the openness and integrity of the team to deliver a really good result. So the scoring system is shown in this bottom left-hand box. It's really simple. It's 0 to 5. 0 is you haven't thought about that issue yet. 1 is you've got a plan in place. 2, there's some progress. 3, there's significant progress. 4, the activity is complete. 5, it's approved and documented. And you're also allowed to say it's not applicable. So you can put NA in. So you can say it's not applicable to this project. So the aim of this is not to be a huge bureaucratic overhead to a project. The aim is to identify project risks and to either eliminate them and mitigate them to improve the quality delivery of the project. In terms of the results this shows, it comes out, it gives you an overall percentage. And what we found from experience of using the tool so far is that you really have to be over 90% complete at the end of the stage in order to be able to move on to the next stage with an acceptable level of risk. So just keep that number in mind at the moment. If you ever use the tool, it's about, you want to be 90% plus in terms of your progress to date. So this page, as I said, it shows a summary of where you're at. So what does the actual tool look like? It consists of a number of pages that look like this. And once again, I'm not expecting you to read that. We'll come on to the next slide. I'll show you a bit more of the detail. But basically, it consists of 3 reviews. On the left-hand side, you do a review as you're just starting a stage of the project, either the concept stage or the develop design stage. Third to halfway through that, you do a design checkpoint review. And then towards the end of the stage, you validate and assure where you've got to. So what you're going to do is go through these points here and score yourself against them in the box, and the tool will just add up your score as it goes along. So the key thing I want to stress is this is not a sophisticated tool. I'm not selling a great bit of software, but it's an easy to use piece of Excel. And the key thing, as I stressed earlier, is that it's the experience and knowledge that's built into this tool that is the key benefit. So who will it be beneficial to? For me, there are 2 answers to this. The first, it's beneficial to everybody involved in project management or quality control, because I think when you are asked the question, how's your project going, you tend to give a fairly high level view and not delve into the deep issues. And that's sort of human optimism, if you like. We like to look on the positive side and describe the positive side, the way things are going. This tool provides a series of questions where you can dig in depth into all the steps you should have gone to and decide how you're really getting on versus those steps before you move on with the project. So I think everybody can benefit from the disciplined approach it brings. But I think then if you're a new project manager, you're less experienced, then almost every question here is going to be beneficial to you as you run your project. But even for the really experienced project managers, I'm sure they'll find a couple of points in here that they hadn't thought about or don't think about regularly. So I think there's a benefit to everybody. And even missing one of these steps, the output could be negative in terms of quality terms in hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds. So there's some big gains to be had for very minimal investment. So just taking a couple of points here to give you a flavor of the kind of things it asks and the issues it tackles. The first one says here, has the requirements document been updated with the developed design level requirements and any changes to existing client requirements? Has it been approved by the affected stakeholders ahead of design commencing? And has it been published in the document management system? I'm sure many of you have struggled with requirements on a project. And I can certainly think of projects I've been involved in where the requirements have emerged late in the design process and required significant levels of design change late in the process, all of which has driven the design costs. Hopefully the requirements are found before the project goes to construction, but sometimes they're not, and then the costs get significant. So the first steps, that first point really is about requirements and driving the team to get a rigorous set of requirements that leads to a right first time design. The second point I put in because this is something I hadn't even thought of until we talked to some of the experts who built their knowledge in. And it talks about the optimization of the design. It says, has the optimization of the design been agreed versus the agreed level of time and cost? That is, do you have a low cost, quick design that may lead to a heavily over-engineered solution you might save now and pay later? So how might this work on a project? Well, the client project manager is often under extreme pressure to reduce the cost of the project. So he thinks he'll talk to the designer and ask them to take 10% off the design costs. He asks them the question. They of course are extremely enthusiastic and keen to please the client. So they run away, have a look at their design bill and come back and say, yeah, we've done it. We've got our 10% out of the project. The project manager is very happy and goes and tells his boss. But what's actually happened? But what they actually did was they went back and looked at the design content. They identified a lump called optimization of the design, and they just crossed that bit out basically, and basically took the factor of design safety and multiplied it by 2, and it increased the weight of the design solution. So the client was going to pay later in tons of concrete and steel for a low-cost design. And the point of this point is not to say what's right or wrong. The point is just to say, do you understand the level of optimization and are you happy with it? Or would you actually be better spending more on the design and getting a better solution? So in conclusion, the tool is very low overhead. It's really easy to operate. It's a free piece of software. It's based on Excel. It takes about 20 hours to run per project, which is really not very long, even if you're paid an awful lot of money. And the savings are likely to be much greater than the cost. And the key thing really is that there's a level of global wisdom built into the tool about how to go about running a high quality project. And it covers client, consultants and contractors. So it provides a holistic view of how to drive quality on a project. Well, that's it for me. I'm going to hand over now to Anita, who's going to talk about the North American perspective and what's going on there at the moment.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anita McReynolds-Lidbury. I am the Director of Quality for Austin Transit Partnership, which is a new agency in Austin, Texas. We are beginning and have begun a $7 billion program here in Austin. It has not had a light rail system previously, so this is a huge undertaking for us. So the tool we're looking at, we started this approach here in the States with first the American design and construction industry as taking the tool globally and having the ASQ endorse it and support it and add it to their website because they back it up. We were looking to have the tool be initialized for all of our design and construction team members that come to ASQ for questions. How do you look at new projects, new quality managers that are not necessarily given the advantages that everyone would think when you're given a new project? What do? How do you look at a construction project for the first time and wrap your arms around something sizable, right? So this was something that ASQ went wholeheartedly on and endorsed it with no hesitation whatsoever. We are also working with the American Society for Civil Engineers to get their endorsement. That is under, we're working very closely with them now. Hopefully we'll have that shortly. The publication that was done for the Australian quality articles, we're similarly doing the same thing and looking forward to doing that. The ASQ quality progress in November, December timeframe. But let me take you back to our project here in Austin. And like I said, it's a $7 billion program, but currently we are retooling and reassessing. When you look at a project that has probably 9 elements, and let me just flip over to the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. All of those little lines there are different programs within that $7 billion number. When we did our 15% cost estimate, our numbers grew. With that, you can only imagine what that number came in as. That number was significantly higher. So this tool will come in really handy for us, although we tried to use it before. This will come in very handy in looking at the reassessment, so we can look at cost and schedule as we do some possible redesign on some of those lines that we're looking at there. Our light rail lines are orange and blue, with a green line possibly down in a future state. We are running 2 Metro Rapid lines currently. Those are bus rapid transit. We have a red line commuter rail that we're doing some improvements on. We have multiple park and rides that are under design. We have a maintenance facility, as you can imagine, that needs to go with those orange and blue light rail lines, and then the maintenance and operating facility. So you can see by all of that, the lines on that mapping, what constitutes that the rail program and its Project Connect overall. It's a significant investment for Austin. It's a significant investment for this region. So that number just kind of exponentially grew. And everybody's facing the same things. It's due to market conditions, material costs, labor costs, those types of things that have all affected most construction projects and design projects over the course of the last few years. But as we reevaluate what we're doing, the tool will come in very handy as we holistically look at the approach. From a quality perspective, I look at it from soup to nuts. If you don't look at it that way, we're doing a disservice to not just us, the client, but to our consultants as well. As I tell everybody, if you don't look at it, if I lose, you lose. If you lose, I lose. So we're all in it together. So it's it's an interesting project, and I look forward to some of your questions. But as we move forward here, I'll go to the next screen. So what's next for us? We encourage the use of the tool. We embed all of your feedback from the global community and the US community to continue to refine the tool. We use your input in our annual reviews, and then we process any of those updates in our planned updates that are both on the US website, the Australian websites, and then of course the UK websites. So with that, I'm going to follow it up with a summary. The Quality and Construction Design tool is available to everybody. It's on all of our websites. We've gathered all of the experience on how to best ensure the quality during the design stages of the project, but as we all know, the design stages, of course, affects all of the construction stages. So using it should reduce your risk on your project, delivering you high quality and lower cost on a get it right the first time delivery. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the GIRI facilitator, Helena.
Thank you, Anita. I think now we're going to ask for questions. Sorry, I'm just going to make this. Yes, that's it. So you're welcome to either put your hand up and then we'll invite you to unmute yourself and ask your question, or if you want to put your question into the chat box, we can read those out for you. There is one in the chat box already. I'm not sure if you can see that, if the presenters can see that, but I can read it out.
I have seen it. It's about having plans to use something other than Excel. So I don't know, David and Anita, if you have considered anything else. I don't know of any plans of using something else. But as I was reading it, I was thinking maybe Power Apps would be a next thing, and using Power BI for the graphs. So I don't know, David, any?
No, at this stage, no, I had no plans to use different systems. I mean, if there was strong demand for that and there's a better way of presenting the data, more than happy to consider it.
Right. I think it'd be easy to do and migrate it over.
Mm.
I see the hand up. Where can you access the tools? They are on the CQI website, and then they are on the ASQ Design and Construction website currently, and I believe in the UK they are on the Engineers Australia website. But we can certainly put all of those in the chat box.
Michael, would you like to ask a question? If you just unmute yourself. You can put your camera on as well if you wish.
I've got it. One problem that I've been recipient of as a consultant with claims has been this habit of getting a bid in, the bid's been over the budget, and then organizations start trimming it. And of course, the trimming is done rapidly. It's done frequently unorganized. And my record to date is the saving of $250,000, which I left the lawyers arguing between the cost of $10 million and $20 million. I mean, would the tool help with this, or could it be part of the bid appraisal process somehow?
Do you want to answer that from your assurance? I guess your
Yeah,
assurance.
I have to say, a very good question, actually. So I suppose I would like to understand when you say at the bid stage, what stage are we talking about? Before we have done the design or after? Because usually I'm aware of
a design has been done, typically,
yeah,
or at least a heavily schematic design.
yes,
but it's there in principle, and the kind of equipment, vessels, etc. There might be some detail to do, but there is substantially the design is there.
yes.
That's been the basis of the bid. the bid goes in, the client says, oh, it's 5% over budget. We'll trim this, we'll cut that, we'll do this. But of course, the design's been done in a balanced way.
Yes.
And when they start doing this, it's not balanced.
Yeah. If I was part of that bid team, for example, and I had the tool at my use, I would go and see whether there are elements of what the tool asks that I could see. For example, are there clear requirements? Has the design looked at the optimization that David mentioned? And if they were not, maybe you could bring that out in the bid process, I suppose, and have it as a caveat as to why something could cost a little bit more because it's not there. There are a lot of projects that go even at the bid stage when the requirements are not fully clarified. So
no, in this case, the cases I'm thinking of, the requirements were pretty much there. The client tried to reinterpret their requirements. Classic was a big electrical contract. They tried to reinterpret that things should have been in there, but when they added them in, the cost went up. Then they tried to trim the price elsewhere where it shouldn't have been trimmed. Another one I can think of is where a guard bed was on an aluminium honeycomb and a spare was included. The reason for it being on aluminium honeycomb because it had to be supported, but it was also providing protection against caustic wash from a previous process. When they moved it, because it could be collapse and saved the $350,000 on a spare guard bed, of course that immediately exposed a turbine compressor.
Yeah, I don't think the tool
so
is
it went
at
on
that level to look at detailed design because it's primarily focused on the early stages and the key things you have to get right. I cannot personally see how that could link, if not at a very high level, not detailed, if you see what I mean.
David Myers.
Yeah, what I'd say is that, I mean, the tool forces a disciplined approach and a disciplined way of delivering the project. So I would say, to answer your question, if the client has made a series of changes, I would go back and look at all the elements of the steps that you should have gone through and reappraise them in light of those changes.
Yeah.
And maybe your confidence level drops from 95% to 85%.
Yeah.
And brings with it a series of risks that will be defined by the output of consideration of those questions. So you
yes, I can see value of that. I mean, I've been on the client side where we've actually deliberately taken the risk because there are advantages to us doing so. I mean, in one case, we cut precast costs, for example, by 50% because we managed to switch to autoclaving rather than precast.
Yeah. And that's exactly, the tool is not there to stop you doing it. It's just to identify the risks and make sure that they're fully understood and shared by everybody.
No, I like that idea because I think you need sometimes to take the risks and sometimes you want to avoid them like the plague.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's, well, I was involved with a big sea defense one where we took a risk on the edge of the preloading berm. But we improved the loading berm's efficiency by taking that risk. We had about a third of the length edge failure, but we managed to finish the project early.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Neil, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a bit of an observation and a question. So it was just what someone raised a sort of question earlier, and something on a caveat as an approach for you is that there's a thing called the diffusion of innovation. So if you're bringing something in like this tool, the trick is to ease of use, keep it simple, and ensure you've got trialability. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is keep it simple. You don't have to go for whizzy things. And I think you've already harnessed the approach of making it free, which is great. So you should be onto a bit of a winner. My question is, how much data have you got on the use of this tool, and how much difference has it made? Can you, I mean, it's a toughie, that one, but what does it look like, I suppose?
I can probably provide a very generic answer based on the Heathrow experience originally, but a generic one, because how do you measure that in every project? It is a bit difficult. However, we had a focused quality approach at Heathrow, where, for example, the quality managers that would support the project had access to the tool, could use the tool at the early stages. In addition to other things that we had, to be honest. So we were doing gateway reviews, collaborative gateway reviews, and other things. That's why I cannot say, you know, whether it was particularly this tool that made the difference. And then we also looked through a working group of the Chartered Quality Institute, actually. We tried to look at the cost of quality after a project has been finished and try to link all of these proactive activities that were happening with whether we have saved money, reduced costs. And we did prove that there was a difference, but it was difficult to actually say that it was because of that. But we knew that the portfolio was becoming more effective, if you see what I mean, and that year on year, we were having less overruns of projects and less, and the costs were being reduced. And we had, actually, when I say the costs were being reduced, we could actually probably predict better the costs of the projects. Okay. But on a kind of smaller scale, when I was involved using it, I knew that there were very simple things to fix that it was bringing up. Also focusing the mind of the project team on whether they have finished something fully or not. Trying to bring attention and escalate the need to make a decision on something. So definitely, in my view, it has made a difference, but whether it can be quantified or whether there is data about it at the moment, I cannot say. I don't know if, Anita, maybe you have looked at that or how you could do that.
I think it's a little, I think it's still a little early. As we get into it a little further and get into the weeds of it, I think we're going to find a little more data. I'm hopeful as we apply it to some of the programs going forward. I think I'll find more data. I think as I engage more of our consultants and our contractors in the conversation, I'll have more data. But currently, I can't quantify a number. So is it going to work for everybody? Not sure, but I think we will get a better quality product at the end of the day as we go through this process. And it's part of a quality culture that we're building as well. So it's not just the tool, right? You've got to build that quality culture in some cases where you don't have one. So it's moving that needle as you're moving the tool through there. With its ease, you still have to build that quality culture behind it.
Excellent. Cheers.
Do we have any more questions? If you'd like to put your hand up if you've got a question, or just unmute yourself and ask if that's easier.
Somebody did put a comment around the scoring method and how it would be, it could be used to analyze performance, but I don't think we have done that in an international level. Maybe it can happen in a kind of company local level.
I think we do have another hand up. So it's Michael. Would you like to?
Very quick one. On a major rail program, one of the things we noticed by applying a different approach to risk management, very different approach. In fact, we only had about 12 risks in the register on a major program. But what we noticed was we got massively improved stability of delivery. Could you measure that what you are achieving with this tool through improved stability of delivery? In other words, when you say you're going to do something, it actually happens.
Right.
You with what I'm getting at?
No, I think I understand what you're asking, and right now we haven't decided the delivery method, so we're
Right.
still looking at the delivery method. They are reassessing those currently because of the cost estimates that came in at our 15%, which made everybody take pause. So they're reassessing those. So as we do that, we're reassessing also the risks and the risk involved. They have to go through a whole nother risk workshop. So as we do that, I think we'll find some of those answers. And yes, you're absolutely correct. In a rail project, your risks, we don't want a ton of them, but we know some of them are going to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
One of those is the long leads, right? Your long lead items need to be done as early as possible to reduce that risk level.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I'm thinking with regards to proving, it's also the qualitative element of how the tool can be used in project reviews, where you could actually see month by month how things are closed, how the team is improving, removing obstacles. So there's also that element of looking at the performance from a qualitative perspective.
Okay, we've got another question in the chat box. Are there future webinars or presentations planned for use of the design quality tool? That's from Greg.
I can answer that one for Greg. We did. We were all, the three of us were ready to present this again at the ASQ Design and Construction Conference. Unfortunately, that has been postponed, but we will be on their next agenda here in, I believe it's going to be next September, if not prior. I'm gonna try and see if I can't sneak us into the World Quality Conference and put this presentation into that program. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. There's a question from Kevin. All of the discussion seems to suggest that the tool is really only for option selection and very high level design issues, not the outline or detailed design stages. Is that the case, or can it be used for detailed design stages?
It is, I'll pick that one up. That's a good clarification question. It is definitely focused on the concept and developed design stages in REBA terms. Could it be used for the detailed design stage? Well, I think you could develop a version of it that would be applicable to those stages, and some of the questions would lift straight over. But I think you'd want to refocus it on the detailed design stage. And we left that out because sometimes the detailed design is done quite early, and sometimes it's done quite late by the contractor. So you'd need to focus the questions around exactly where the detailed design was happening and make sure it was applicable to that project. So it's something that could be done but hasn't been done.
Can I just interject with a question on, sorry, I can't find the hand up or chat space. Do you have a feel for the size of project where this tool would add value?
Well, it was certainly intended to be all-encompassing. I mean, would it be worthwhile on a £5,000 minor house extension? Probably not. Is it viable on a big project? Well, I think Anita's showing that, yes, it's applicable to the biggest of projects. And for me, it would be applicable on any project where spending 20 hours thinking about how you're getting on is good value. So I would say anything that's in the sort of, well, certainly £1 million plus and probably £500,000 plus. Does that make sense?
Originally, that's how it was intended, over $1 million probably, and in the tens of millions region. But I agree with David, it can be applied to anything really.
Thank you very much. I'm interested from a safety perspective, and it's, finding it fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Feel free, as I said, to unmute yourself and just speak if you can't find the chat or the hand up button.
Hi, yeah, it's Neil Simmons here. I've got another sort of observation, and it'd be this, that there are plenty of, programming and production tools. I head up Lean at National Highways for the northwest of England. So we're using plenty of techniques to control our projects, stuff like Last Planner. We've got Last Planner for programs. I'm just thinking, if you don't watch it, you might end up reinventing the wheel in certain areas. And I think you need to sort of amalgamate with a lot of the current systems which are out there. Otherwise, just things, like I was saying before, just get far too complicated. So I suppose the question is that on your radar to integrate with other systems rather than plot your own course?
But I think a good question. I think that in a big company, then clearly you're going to want to integrate this with the currently used control systems, and you're absolutely right, there will be a level of overlap in that. But I would envisage that if you're a larger corporation, you're going to take this tool, take out of it what you think are the important things to run your business, and embed them in your own corporate systems, either by just running this as an overlay and somehow interlinking it, or by just simply lifting the content out and putting it in your own system. So in the end, as I was trying to stress, it's the what's inside the tool, it's the knowledge and the experience built in that's the really critical part. And I think it's up to individual companies to decide how it's best to use that, whether they just run it as a standalone overlay or whether they decide to embed it. That's sort of your choice. For me, it's just important that all these good questions are asked at the right point to try and improve quality in future.
Excellent, cheers.
I think we've got a question in the chat box from Julian. Does the tool concentrate on the production of outputs at appropriate milestones, or does it ensure that the design solution is the appropriate one?
So I can start answering that. I don't know if you want to add to what I will say, David, maybe. It looks at activities and outputs of activities and whether they have happened and whether the outputs are at the correct maturity, expected maturity level. So it's probably the former. However, it doesn't assure the design solution, but whether it assures whether the design solution is the appropriate one, it talks about, for example, have you got the basis of design document? Is it agreed? Do you understand risks? Have you, so it because of it, the activities that it touches upon, you should also have a design outcome that is the appropriate and responds to the requirements and the needs of the brief. But it's not a technical assurance tool. I don't know if you want to add.
No, I totally agree with that, Helen. And I think what I would say is that by ensuring that the process is handled correctly, it ensures that the designs you're trying to make a decision on are robust. So where it helps, it doesn't help you choose a design, but it ensures the designs you're looking at as options are all robust in the first place. And therefore you ought to get a better quality output of that solution choice.
Thanks, David. So I think we've got time for one more question. If there's any more questions, now's your chance. Put your hand up or unmute yourself and ask. I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. Otherwise, I think we'll probably
wrap up. This is a general question.
You need to speak a little more loudly, I think. We can't hear you.
Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Only just about, Inmar.
Sorry for that, but I'll speak louder. I just want to say if this method is tailored toward the alternative project delivery methods that we have. Second, if this method or this tool has been shared with the contractor community to get some input on how that's going to impact tool for these different alternative project delivery methods, because that affect the design level that the contractors are involved with, and how that's going to affect the applicability?
I'm not sure I fully understood that. I don't know if you did, Helen.
Me neither,
Anita?
to be honest. Maybe it's best if you can type it in more, I think, because
I think I only got part of it in one. And
okay.
something had to do with alternative delivery methods.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you use the tool? Are you asking if you could use the tool for alternative delivery methods? Was that your question?
Yes.
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 As a group, we looked at all delivery methods. So yes, it can. And it, as long as you're looking at the tool early on, and you're using the tool early on, you're asking similar questions, and you're utilizing the tool early, you can use whatever delivery method that you need to, because you're evaluating those things as you're going along, right? And I wasn't sure what the rest of your question was, but I did hear the alternative delivery method.
Yes. The second part of the question was if this tool has been shared with the contractor community.
With the contractor community.
Yes.
Got you. Yes, I've talked to some of the contracting community in the States. We're going to continue that conversation. They are not opposed. Some of them with alternative delivery backgrounds, P3, design, build, all of that. Design, build, finance, operate, maintain. It's something that they're interested in. It's something that they're looking to support, some of the big ones. But are they using it today? I don't know specifically of any ones that I have talked to that are using it specifically.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap up now because we're at the end of the session. So I'd like to say on behalf of GIRI, thank you very much for your presentations. I hope that was useful to our attendees. Thank you very much for joining us. We do have a GIRI newsletter, which you're welcome to sign up to, and we'll be sending out the resources that relate to this tool. And if you want to sign up, I've just put the link in the chat box, and we'll contact everybody who registered and pass that on to them as well. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.